All of our live episodes plus exclusive content in our channel at Radyo-Katipunan FM. Don't forget to click subscribe and hit the bell to get the latest updates.
Just with Music Ministry, your daily dose of inspiration. Follow jescom.ph on Spotify and Jescom Music on YouTube. We are also on iTunes and Deezer.
Radyo-Katipunan. News, insights, inspiration. Radyo-Katipunan. Down from the hill and down to the world. Radyo-Katipunan. The voice of the Blue Eagle.
Let's reclaim what is rightfully ours at the 9th PP Radio Conference. Revamp the media blueprint and reclaiming the Republic on March 25 via Zoom and PP Radio Conference official Facebook page. Together, let's redeem our narratives.
Radyo-Katipunan. News, insights, inspiration. Radyo-Katipunan. Down from the hill and down to the world. Radyo-Katipunan. The voice of the Blue Eagle.
Blue Eagle, kami di mapipigil sa pagbabalitang tumpak at tama. Buhay atenista, sa loob sa labas ng eskwela, ating ibibida lahat ng eskwela.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
If it's entertainment you crave,
catch us on New Wave.
Surfing through the latest on our shores.
Every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m.
See you there. Everyone, good afternoon. Coming at you live on Radyo-Katipunan 87.9 FM via Zoom. I'm Max, and when it comes to what's happening, I'll serve you the facts. So please take this hour to sit back and relax because this is New Wave. So I don't know about you guys, but March seems to be passing in the blink of an eye. And just like that, it's almost over. And I'm sure everyone has a lot of plans for the year. And today, I think I have something that might add to that. So our local find is one of the biggest advertising case competitions for college students in the Philippines. This year, UP Advertising Corps together with CDO Fantastic presents UP Ad Corps Teen Speak 22 Take the Extra Bite, where you can get the chance to win up to 75,000 pesos and other prizes, be mentored by the industry's best and connected CDO for potential career opportunities. So this is something that us college students should not miss. So to share more about this are two representatives from UP's Advertising Corps. Please welcome JJ Bermejo and Gabe Garcia. So good afternoon, both of you.
Hi, good afternoon.
So, welcome to Ateneo from UP. So, tell us about Take the Extra Bite and how this competition came about.
Max, UP AdCore has always been for unleashing the creative potential of the youth, and it doesn't stop with its own members, the UP AdCore, diba? We cater to the youth outside the organization, even outside the university. And now on our 13th year, TeamSpeak, and in partnership, of course, with CDO Fantastic, Filipinos' #1 breakfast food, we want the youth to take the extra bite. Kasi sometimes everything is set, nandiyan na lahat ng opportunities and experiences. We just have to grab it, diba? A person just needs that extra nudge to take the extra mile. And that is what TeamSpeak stands for. Will be your extra push for you to reach the greatness that you deserve. So,
All right. So let's make this a step more concrete. What are the goals of this competition?
All right. So for our goals for TeamSpeak this year, I think what's really, relevant to our participants is to really provide them a platform for them to make their ideas come to life. So we will do this by empowering them to really think outside the box, to test their different strategic skills, and of course, provide them with experiences to create quality campaigns and proposals. Aside from this, in relation then to our brand client in CDO, our plan is to really cater to their target market. Now, let's say us, the youth, especially since we're partnering with them, and of course, address their different client challenges that, let's say, our participants will be, working with throughout the whole competition.
Okay, so I like to see the collaboration aspect of it, but who is encouraged to join and what are the mechanics? Also, because it's called TeenSpeak, are people who are not teens allowed to join as well?
Nice question, Max. Actually, TeenSpeak, one of the biggest inter-university advertising case competition, is open to all college students. So regardless of your age, as long as you're a college student and you're a student from a university or college in the Philippines, you are free to join TeenSpeak. Just form a team with 3 to 5 members, kahit from different universities pa yan, and fill out the application form that you can see on the screen, bit.ly/TeenSpeak2022. Ayan. You will be asked to create a 2 to 5 page paper discussing your team's solution to the case challenge presented by our brand partner, CDO. So the specifics on this will be discussed during the online case briefing on April 3. Again, this is open to all college students and free ang registration fee ng TeenSpeak.
All right, so this is going to be a good opportunity for us over here. I can see this working out well for the management majors, marketing, communications. It'll be very beneficial. So what else will participants have to look forward to?
All right, so for TeenSpeak this year, we have lots in store for our different participants. I think what's really exciting that people will look forward to is, of course, the exciting prizes that we have for the main competition. So as you can see in the poster there, the prizes range from 15K to 75K. But aside from this, we also have different initiatives, let's say our mini games that also have cash prizes and X deals from, let's say, CDO and Senka, another brand partner that we have. Of course, another thing that they can look forward to is a mentorship opportunity from industry professionals. I think with the case competition, this is really important for them to really experience, for them to really, be honed and to experience what it's like working in the real life advertising in the world. And then aside from that, of course, you mentioned this earlier already, they can connect with CDO Foods here. I think that's really a good way to really bring themselves out there to, let's say, CDO as a company. And then lastly, we also have different events in store from them. We have the virtual school caravan that will be launched on March 26th. So people can still sign up to that. And then we also have our boot camp, mentorship, and finals. And yeah, this will take place throughout the duration of the event. And we look forward to, let's say, our participants to join. And those who are still, not sure if they want to sign up, feel free to just attend the virtual school caravan so that you can take a feel of what it's like to be in the case competition.
Oh, wow, okay, that's a really good offering. And this seems like it's going to be as I said earlier, a very good opportunity for a lot of college students because it doesn't just provide the competition, but it also provides all of these experiences. It's a big learning opportunity and a good way to network. So, all of this said, where can we find you? What are your socials? Where can people sign up for this?
All right, so for our socials, you can find us at FB at UP Adcore TeenSpeak.
And for our Twitter and IG, it's at teenspeak_UP. And again, you can register sa TeenSpeak through our registration form. That's bit.ly/teenspeak2022.
Okay, so thank you, JJ and Gabe. Please don't forget to drop off these links and usernames in the comment section of our FB Live so that students know where to find you and they can sign up.
Yes, thank you, Max.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Max.
Thank
See
you. Thank you. All right, you guys. So last Monday, we got to sit down with a filmmaker who continuously advocates and fights for the representation of women and the LGBTQ plus community within Philippine cinema. Her first film, Baka Bukas, has won various awards both in the Philippines and abroad, including the Emerging Talent Award at Outfest 2017. Her second film, called Billy and Emma, is another industry favorite and one that Atenean communication students have viewed and studied in different classes. So today, we will be able to learn more about the director and the visions she has in her movies. So here is our interview with Direct Samantha Lee. Good afternoon, Direct.
Hi, good afternoon. Hi, Max. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Hi, it's very nice to see you here. Thank you for coming. So, how are you and how has this year been for you so far?
I I think it's such a weird question to ask. Like, how are you is such a weird question to ask anyone, especially in the past 2 years. And like, parang the default is always like to say, yeah, I'm doing okay, even if you're not. But I think, yeah, I'm okay. I'm a bit tired, but hanging in there. Yeah.
Hanging in there. What's been happening for you over the past few weeks?
Well, I mean, I do a lot of things. So I'm taking my second master's in UP. I also have a day job. I also have a couple of projects that I'm working on, which just wrapped, and I do a lot of freelance work. So it's been a pretty busy first quarter of the year, but yeah, it's been okay.
Wow, thank you for making time for us. So I just wanted to ask you about your master's in UP. What are you taking up?
I'm doing my master's in women's studies.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So how's class like for you now? Like, have you had classes on site yet, or is everything still online?
So I started the master's just like a couple of weeks before the pandemic hit. And then so we transferred online. And if I wasn't so busy with my other things, I should be doing my thesis now, but I got delayed. But I think like you guys can relate. It's been super tough. It's been hard to focus. And yeah, it's just been tough. So, but I can relate to all your, struggles.
Yes, super.
As students. Yeah.
Super. I felt all of that. Like, alongside worrying about the academic things, we also need to take up a lot of internships. We take up a lot of the extra things. So like, it gets very overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's also just like I think that people don't realize, because I see a lot of tweets na parang, like people who don't go through what we're going through, who kind of like underestimate the struggle. But it's really, because I think I consider myself like a good student, and some would say I'm a career student, because cumulatively, I think like I've been studying for, because this is my second master. So where I know what it's like to be a student. And last semester was the first semester and I had an incomplete. And the last time that happened was when I was hospitalized. in college. So parang, diba, the fact that
Yeah.
like that happened means that like there's something inherently wrong with the system already. Na parang, diba? Parang even if I wanted to complete all my subjects, it was still so difficult for me. So props to everyone who's struggling and trying to make it through.
Right.
Yeah, don't be too hard on yourself, because I know I definitely was like hard on myself when I incompleted last semester, pero that's life.
I think that's something all of us, especially the ones studying right now, really needed to hear, because like I think the pressure of online school has gotten so much heavier, and like it's so different from how things were in real life, because like at least for me in real life we had some semblance of organization, because you show up to class, you have the lessons, it's there. But now with online, like everything's a little more complicated. But sige, let's move on to movies because I feel like we could talk about this for a very long time. So reading biographies is very different from hearing the story from the source. So please take us to the beginning of your journey in movie making. Like, what got you interested in film and how did this all begin?
I think like I remember the first time I wanted to I said that I wanted to be a director. It was like I think I was like in 5th grade or something. But it was something that I said in passing. Like, when kids say like they want to be an astronaut or whatever. Like it was something I said out loud, but it wasn't really something I thought I was gonna be. But I eventually took up film in UP. But even when I was doing film in UP, I talk about this a lot. I didn't think I was gonna be a director. And it wasn't until like later on. And I think it's because like when you make films and you write and direct films that are super personal to you, it's kind of like sharing a part of yourself. And I didn't feel ready or open enough to share until like years after I graduated. So yeah, that's how I became a director. Yeah.
What prompted you to start sharing? Like, what was the moment like?
It was so I was doing my master's in Melbourne. So I was like living there. I had a full-time corporate job. So I was working in education. I had like was going to the office every day. It was like a super normal, steady life. And it was like in Australia, and like yeah, life was super great. I had friends, like I was like seeing someone. And then we were like out one night, me and this girl that I was seeing. We were in a club. Then we decided to leave and go home. And then we were walking down the street, like holding hands. We weren't even like doing anything. We were just like holding hands. We were gonna go home. And then like a group of guys like started heckling us. And she's like a lot shorter than me because I'm pretty tall. But like my instinct was like, you need to run away. Like, you find safety. But she like stood up to them. It's like, what's wrong with you? Like, what's wrong? Why are you, calling us out and things like that? And probably that was like the moment I realized that like what was it about the society I grew up in and my upbringing that made me feel so apologetic about who I was at that moment and made me not want to fight. I mean, common sense, right? Like, you should definitely find safety. But another fact was like, what made her so brave that made her like want to stand up to them, like defend who she was, who we were. And then so I'm like this. I had this like romantic notion that films. Like that films in general can help change the world. So I was like, I'm gonna move back to the Philippines and make films that would make the younger version of myself feel okay with who they are. So that's kind of, I packed everything up. I don't remember when this was. I think this was like September 2015, I want to say. And then Baha Bukas came out November 2016.
Wow.
So it was like a swift like if you think about it, right, like from not wanting to make films to like packing everything up, moving back home, leaving my life, and just like saying, okay, we're gonna do this, we're gonna make a film. And I think ever since then, it's kind of been my mandate as a director in both the films that I make and in the commercial work that I do, to try to tell like more nuanced stories about women and the LGBTQ plus community.
Wow, I never knew that the shift was that fast. Like 2015 to 2016, the movie came out. Like it's amazing.
Yeah, and parang I told this story recently to someone who was like I was working with. And then he asked about the girl, and then I was like, oh, you know, she never knew kasi like I was just like, I'm gonna go home now, like sorry. Not like that, but in a nicer way. But the pandemic we reconnected, and then I got to tell her like the real reason why and how like she played a part in that. So that's kind of like the full circle moment.
Wow, well, that in itself is a movie. Like how everything worked out, how the big role she played. That's so cool to see. Now, on the topic of bravery, you're described as someone who is reclaiming the right to tell like stories of different groups. So personally, how are you doing this? How do you reclaim this right?
First of all, I've never heard anyone say that about me before.
I'll show you later.
So thank you. Pero ano ba? I mean, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the efforts and the struggles of all the women and LGBTQ plus directors who came before me. And I think that just society at large is such a patriarchal society, and for historically those are the stories that have been told because men have traditionally had all the access to writing, to literature, to books, to art, to movies. So diba? So it's not so I think like in my own little way, like I try to make a conscious effort to tell stories from a queer female's perspective or from a woman's perspective. And it's not only me, like I try to make sure that everyone else in my crew, it's either they're all female or it's like female and LGBTQ plus crew. And so that's something I'm very aware and I'm conscious about. Because it's important, especially like women's stories and queer women's stories that have been under the male gaze for so long. And they're still under the male gaze for so long. Na parang, diba, if you think about it in 2020 or 2019, like there were two lesbian series that came out that were both directed by men. And so that's still something that's prevalent in our society today. And so diba, parang, like it's so hard because I keep pitching. Like it's like people always ask me, direct, like when's the next project? And I always say na it's not up to me because I try. I keep trying, but diba, parang some opportunities are still given to them. So it needs to be a systemic change and not just like a one person change.
Exactly. That's actually what the next thing I was going to bring up. Like I was going to say that a lot of these stories need to be told by people who have experienced them and people who can literally give firsthand accounts instead of like an outward perspective on a certain situation. So that being said, I know that the stories you tell, they're all truth. They're things that you've experienced. So how do you choose what stories need to be shared with a wider audience?
I think like when I first started, my first film was very personal to me. It was like it was super personal to about and I think like that was something I needed to get out of my system. And then after that, I think the next mandate was to try to tell stories of people whose stories don't necessarily get told so often. So that's something that I'm hyper aware about. And I think also, diba, that's why I'm taking up my master's in women's studies, because that's something that, like, this is something I'm taking seriously, and I would like to continuously be learning about all these different issues and topics that affect the different intersectionalities of women. And so that's always in the forefront of whenever I'm writing or choosing to do something. As far as what stories are getting highlighted, who's getting highlighted. Because that's part of the, like, having like a voice or having privilege is like sharing the mic and making sure that other kinds of stories get told. It's not just about you, it's about other people.
Yeah, that's so true. That's something like a lot of us need to remember, to share the mic, to help. We all want to win. We all want to bring each other. All right. So when it comes to directing, how exactly does one learn to direct? Like, are there technicalities, or is this something that you learn through experience, or a mix of both?
Oh, I wish I knew. I think parang there are different kinds of directors. And I think that you need to know yourself first. I think like, to be a good director, you need to know yourself first, and or figure out. Like, I know a lot of my peers and my contemporaries are very technical directors, and I also know other directors who are actors directors. And I think for me, my thing isn't super technical, but it's for me, it's important that since I work primarily with women and people in the LGBTQ plus community, I always say to them, when you're on my set, I want you to feel safe and protected. And so that's always top of mind for me. My actors and my crew feel safe and protected and supported whenever they're on my set. And that's nothing technical. They won't teach you that. It's not in a film book.
That's a you thing.
It's a me thing. And it's, well, I hope it's a many people thing. Or parang,
it should be.
Kasi I think well, I guess if we were gonna talk about advice that you don't necessarily find it in film school, I think it's also important when you're a director. I think the best service you can give to the people you work with, aside from being kind and respectful, is to be super decisive and respectful of their time. Because we work super long hours, and people put so much time and effort into making your vision a reality. And I think it would be not very nice of you as a director if you didn't know what you wanted and you kind of like waste everyone's time. So it's important na sure ka what you want. And when you go on set, parang you make everyone align with that vision and make sure that it gets done quickly and efficiently. Yeah. But my sets are I like to say my sets are fun and efficient. but there's no technical walang theory whatsoever.
But no, that's something that's very good to keep in mind, because like making a movie is a team effort. Like, it's a very communal thing. So it's so important to not only worry about like the technical aspects of the film, but also the experience of the people involved, like you said, and that they feel safe and supported. Like, that's really something that should be a norm in film sets nowadays.
Yeah, I think also, well, I mean, if we're gonna talk about technical things, like I make sure I study and prepare and things like that. And I know people in my crew, they all study and they do their own research at their own time, so that when we show up, we can show up for each other. And it's one great cohesive environment.
What are the non-film related skills that can help a person navigate the film industry, especially here in the Philippines?
I think you should, if you're not already in some sort of therapy, you should try it out. No, I'm serious. Like, kasi parang how can you, it's like you said, like film is such a collaborative environment, especially these days na people go in lock-in. So you're with people 24/7 for an X amount of time. And I think like you should, well, me, I try to always to show up on set as the best version
Of
of
course.
myself. Para, alam mo yun?
Of course, of
It's
course.
already so high pressure as it is.
Yes.
So I think take care of yourself first. And like what they say about like take care of yourself first before you can take care of others. And I think that's a good skill to have. Not only in filmmaking, but whenever you're in any team related environment.
Yes, that's right. That's something that we should not neglect, especially now.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're not in therapy or it's too expensive for you, there are other alternative ways that you can look up. Basta, take care of yourself.
Actually, in Ateneo, I think they offer free psychological services. It's just a matter of knowing who to email. And I think Radio Katipunan has promoted them before. So I'll make sure to get that in the
Link
comments.
it in the description box.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about Baka Bukas. And now we have a glimpse of how it began. So let's go into a little more detail. How did making this movie like come about, and how did you get your cast?
Well, I really wanted to make a rom-com because I'm such a fan of that genre. I really just wanted to make like a fun rom-com where no one dies and no one gets hurt. And that was like pretty and you know that made people want to be gay, for a lack of a better term. So that's how that came about. And my cast at that time, syempre, first time director, if people haven't heard about me, but I really wanted to cast someone who, you know, was like really popular because it was the I think if people saw this person in a lesbian role, then it's gonna help with about the acceptability thing and people, you know, being like wanting to see it. So I'm lucky enough that Jasmine was my friend before this, and so I'm eternally grateful to her for saying yes and taking a risk on a first time director and playing her first gay role. Yeah. Director's dream. Yeah.
Really?
Super great. Yeah. I love kasi I think more aside from skill, I like casting girls who women who are outspoken and about the stuff they believe in. Like it's also a personality thing. Like I watch audition videos, but I also read like things that they've said, their YouTube videos and stuff like that before I cast someone. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that also contributes to how the work environment is, because it's not just about skill also, it's also about who they are. It's like any job application, they always ask you for the interview alongside the resume.
Yeah, that's why when they say when you apply for jobs, like be careful what you post on social media.
For sure.
It's partly true.
For sure. And you know, the thing you said about rom-com super resonates. Like a nice, pretty rom-com where no one dies. I feel like now that's the type of movie I'm super drawn to, because like with everything going on in the world, you want that breath of fresh air.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer in the power of rom-coms to act as Trojan horses for heavier societal issues. So, like for Billy and Emma, we talked about teenage pregnancy and abortion, but that was a rom-com as well. And for my next project, it's also a rom-com that also tackles a bunch of different things. So, a rom-com doesn't have to be just a rom-com. Can be other things.
Exactly. That's some people who say like, oh, it's just a rom-com. What about it? It's like, no, you're right. It can do so much more. So on the topic of Billy and Emma, actually, that's something that we study like in our film classes because of a lot of things, like storytelling wise, technically, and of course the subject matter, because we found it very brave in how it told this story that not a lot of people have been brave enough to share. So please walk us through how this story was brought to life.
I had I think I wrote the first draft in like 5 days because there was like a deadline that I needed to meet for funding. So that was how that came to life.
Oh, wow.
But I know, like, because Baka Bukas was very now. So there were like phones and like pre-pandemic, the clubs that I would go to were the clubs that were shown in that film. The way they dressed were the way I would dress or my friends would dress. And so for Billy and Emma, I wanted to kind of wanted it to exist in a bubble. So I was like, no tech for this movie. It's gonna be in the 90s. Actually, the reason why it was set in the 90s was because I was like listening to Firewoman on loop when I was like writing it, and Firewoman came out in 1995. So I was like, okay, this movie's gonna be set in 1995. So I also wanted to kind of show, because I think in cinema, whenever you talk about abortion, it's always like super bloody, super dark. It's parang, I think in some ways like the treatment of a woman's right to choose in cinema is always kind of parang pinaparusahan sila. Parang they have to suffer, they have to go through all these things because they're taking charge and taking control of their body. So I wanted to show I wanted to have a movie that was showing a woman's right to choose, but the ending was hopeful. So I know it's a heavy decision, and I know that it's not legal in this country, but there are some cases talaga where, but it's kawawa talaga yung babae. So I wanted to show like a more positive side to it, for a woman taking charge of her body in a nice, fluffy, young, romantic comedy.
A movie with good music as well. I remember that was one of the things I remember about, like, oh, good music in this movie.
I'm very, I have like playlists for every project that
Nice. So, okay. A while ago you mentioned that you have a new rom-com coming up. So can you share a little about it, or is it still under wraps?
Well, it's called Sleep With Me. It's a series starring Janine and Lovey and a bunch of other really exciting young queer people. But yeah, that's all. It takes place entirely in the nighttime, and I think it comes out in September, if I'm not mistaken.
September. All right, so we'll be watching out for that. For now, what do you think are other stories that should be told, especially in a time
everything? I think that's TikTok is gonna be part of Cannes this year. And I think that's the beauty of having all these like social media platforms, is that everyone gets to be a filmmaker and everyone gets to share their story. Like I'm not a super traditional gatekeepy person. I think that if you have a story that resonates with you and it's genuine and it's from point of view, then absolutely you should 100% share it with the world. And I think because I was in an environment in my educational life where I felt like the stories that I wanted to tell didn't matter. And I think that affected me and why I came into filmmaking so late. So I parang, diba? So that's why I think na parang, if you have a story that you want to share it. It's valid. It's worthy of your time and effort. As long as you put the proper work and research into it, then go do it. Yeah. But parang I think every story is important. Every story has its own merit as long as it's done. Right?
Yes.
I don't know how to say it. It's done right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand.
It doesn't hurt marginalized groups and you represent people properly. Then you should go do it.
Yes, exactly. Like you tell a story, you kind of have to go back to the why to make sure that it's doing more empowering and it's not silencing anyone that shouldn't be silenced.
Yeah, exactly. There are a lot of examples running through my head, but I'm not going to say it. But yeah, just make sure you don't hurt anyone.
Of course, I think like that's something that we should remember a little more that not everything needs to hurt everyone. In fact, we should be looking more towards telling stories that will make people feel seen and a
Yeah.
little more supported instead of attacked. Because there are ways to teach lessons without being so attack mode.
Yeah. And I think that um but I think viewers can tell when you're being genuine. Like I
Yes.
know parang the stories I super love aren't the movies I super love aren't like award winning and
Mm-hmm.
like they're the stories with a lot of heart. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think parang- yeah.
Yeah, authenticity is so important to get the message across because, like, you're right, us audiences can tell, like, okay, why was this done? Was this done because they're genuinely trying to shed light on this, or is this done for clout? So the heart really shows itself when you're authentic.
And I think also like especially when you do right, like I studied film um academically. And I think that sort of it's like an I think that doing that kind of conditioned my brain that I should be telling stories for approval or to get a certain grade. And I should only be telling X amount of stories because those stories are going to get me the uno or the grade that I'm striving for. Which, you know, I think it took a really long time for me to unlearn that and to kind of reinforce in myself that telling stories can be fun and like like us and parang it doesn't like approval is great and everything, but as long as you are happy with what you've done, then I think that's what's really important.
Okay, so now let's move on to our Women's Month questions before we say hello to our students. So from your perspective, why must we celebrate Women's Month?
Well, I think you're asking the wrong person because I think I think Women's Month we should be celebrating women every day, and I think that we should be looking out for the interests of women every single day, and not just a particular month. And also, my thing with Women's Month is that, especially on social media, it just looks out for the interests of a super specific type of woman, which is great as an entry point, but like how like what other work are you doing? Like there's this great phrase that I learned in yoga where it's like I'm not free until all of us are free. And so like that's the lens that I view the woman's struggle through is like okay, that's great that you are a girl boss, but what are you doing about all the other women in your office who don't receive the same privileges as you? Like, how are you celebrating them? And so I think that's something people should be aware of when they're celebrating Women's Month, that it's not just about girl bossing your way through life. It's like also uplifting the other women around you who have separate struggles from you. And you don't even have to stray that far. Like if you have,
that's right.
Like you know, if you're a woman and you have like a lesbian friend, it's like, what are you doing to make sure that your lesbian friend achieves the same rights as you in terms of like marriage and healthcare and acceptance in society and protection? So
for sure,
yeah, it's things like that.
For sure. And that's actually been a recurring theme for us on the show this month. Everyone's been saying it's not a win until everyone wins. And like that's something that all of us need to remember talaga, no matter where we are in life.
It's not about that 20% discount code from that brand. And it's so like I always get like requests to speak from brands. And then I always reply to them, okay, what are you doing to compensate women or uplift them aside from having this stock? And then they always just zoom so me. And these are like big brands who can like afford it. So yeah.
Oh, little bit of an expose, but yes, exactly. It has to be a win for everyone, not just one person. And the only way we can really do that is if everyone everyone on earth helps each other reach that. All right, so we have two students here who have some questions for you today. So we'll try to go through this quickly. The first up is my co-producer, Migoy Arroyo. Please turn on your camera and ask your question.
Kilala ko naman to eh. Hi,
Oh!
Migoy.
Yes. Direct Sam helped me with Cine Sundays for one of our scripts. So yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I guess my question lang is because I feel like when we talk about film, it's always a lot of advice is always make it personal, make it authentic, make it genuine.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it's also hard sometimes to be authentic and genuine because pouring your soul is so. There's a lot of parts of yourselves that I feel that you feel like people won't accept or that you yourself don't accept. So what do you think is your advice for getting out stories that are very personal?
I think I should also just qualify that the reason why like I have a day job is so that I can make the kinds of films that I want to make. I think that if filmmaking was my sole career, then I would be forced to take on projects that weren't so personal to me, that were really just seen as like jobs. So there's nothing wrong with that. Like it's great if you can make a permanent living out of filmmaking. But I'm not at that stage yet. But I always joke, just to get back to your question, parang like for the series that I just wrote, like I was like revising the script and like my Jade Castro, this consultant, the consultant for the series, kept telling me to work on the breakup scene. And para I was texting my friend about ayoko na, like it's how many times do I have to like write the scene? Because it's like super heavy and I don't want to have to relive those emotions every week when I'm like rewriting it. So I don't know. I wish I don't know. I don't know if part of what makes certain things great is because you're so attached to them, or is detachment like a better thing. So that's also something I'm trying to negotiate, I think, like as I go along. Na parang like how much of yourself is too much to give to a project. But like what he said, every project of mine, I think, because like I always say that if I'm gonna write and direct something, it's really like such a big chunk of me. It's so personal. But I think a question I also ask myself is like, how much is too much, especially in the Philippines where filmmakers and creators don't get to keep the rights to their films and to their work. So essentially, you're selling your like a piece of you, diba? So I don't know. I don't have an answer to your question. But if you were here at the start of the program, I told people to maybe try going to therapy or taking care of yourself. So I think that could also help. Pero wala, I'm sorry. I don't have a for real answer to that question. I think it's also up to you. Like know yourself, know your limits, know how much you're willing to give. And if it feels like too much, don't be afraid to reinforce that boundary.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So we have one more student. Gail, please turn on your camera and unmute and ask your question.
Hi, po. I'm a big fan of your work. I love Billy and Emma, first of all.
Thank you.
So my question is about more on like the processes behind writing. So like since you seem to be familiar with a lot of what goes on like behind the film, what does it mean to leave your touch on it as a director, as opposed to leaving like a touch as a writer, if that makes sense?
I think, and I don't know because I've always just directed stuff I've written, but I have a project that I'm gonna direct that I haven't written. But for me, what like I think, I think leaving your touch as a director, well, the way I've done it is more kind of like there are visual cues that I make sure are there that isn't like super explicit, but then I know it's there, or it's like a certain style that I know is there, and you won't realize it until much later on. Sometimes it's gonna take someone else to point it out. Na parang, oh, that's a very Sam Lee thing, And then you're like, oh no, I didn't realize I was doing that. It's such a part of your subconscious. But for writing, it's I think it's a lot different because your voice changes depends on the story you're trying to tell. But I think that advice in terms of that, because whenever I write, I'm you guys use Notion. It's this organizing app. Whenever I work on a new project, I have a Notion doc. Meron silang template na pang thesis. And so I research. I research a lot first. Like I read academic theory, I read so much books and articles, and then I dump them all in that Notion page. And then once I'm done reading and going through all of that, that's when I start writing. But I don't know. I always think kasi that writing is my Achilles heel. Because when I was in 4th grade, I tried out for the school paper, tapos hindi ako natanggap. So feeling ko talaga, I'm such a bad writer and I can't give writing advice. I think that's also partly why I research so much before I write anything. I know that doesn't answer your question, but I hope that helps. Yeah. Sorry, Gail. Yeah. Parang feeling ko like you don't really develop your style as a director until you're much older. And it's something that you will do subconsciously. Yeah. Parang hindi ko na-realize nga na parang in both Baka Bukas and Billy and Emma, I kept having like big scenes of 2 girls in front of windows until someone pointed that out. Pero, yeah. And even in my series, meron na akong big scene of 2 girls in front of a window. Or I didn't realize that until my DP was like, oh, it's the babae sa bintana. It's your thing. And I was like, oh, no. I didn't know I had a thing. So you can ask your friends, I guess.
That's very interesting. So thank you for that. But I think we're almost out of time. So before you go, please tell us what empowerment means to you and anything you would like to tell the audience before we thank you properly.
Oh, what empowerment means to me. Sobrang on the spot na to kasi may academic definition to that I remember writing down in an exam last year. Wow. But I think empowerment is like what we talked about earlier, is that not everyone can be free until we're all free. And it's about struggling for everyone to have the same rights as everyone. It's not one particular group overpowering the other. It's just everyone being equal and having the same access, not just in terms of rights, but also of resources. So those are the 2 things that you need to look out for in terms of empowerment. So don't say girl power too lightly, because it's a very heavy and loaded statement. What's the other question?
Any message you'd like to leave with our audience?
Okay. So I think this is super tough. It's so easy. I think especially now when we're super exposed to like social media and things like that, it's super easy to let external things define you. But I think it's super important to remember that who your essence is, and your essence is who you are, regardless of all these things. So whether it be school problems or work problems, friend problems, love problems, you're still who you are. And you are worthy and deserving of being here.
I know that a lot of us in this Zoom chat alone needed to hear that. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us. Before we say goodbye to everyone in the audience and to our guests, please allow us to thank a few people first. This has been New Wave. Thank you to James and Sir Justin for airing this broadcast and for the support. Thank you once again to our audience for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you all next week. So please don't miss out. Follow us on Instagram at newwave.rk to stay updated. Catch the replay on Radio Katipunan 87.9 FM's Facebook page, YouTube, and Twitter Live, all of which go by at Radio Katipunan. Don't forget that you can also listen to this episode and many more as a podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Anchor under the name New Wave. But most of all, thank you to our guest, Direct Samantha Lee. We're looking forward to your future projects. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today and for the support through your words. So once again, I'm Max, and when it comes to what's happening, I'll serve you the facts. And this is New Wave. We'll see you next week.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
If it's entertainment you crave,
Catch us on New Wave.
surfing through the latest on our shores.
Every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m.
See you there.
Radyo Katipunan. News, insights, inspiration. Radyo Katipunan. Down from the hill and down to the world. Radyo Katipunan. The voice of the Blue Eagle.